Welcome to my library, dear guest. My name is Ko, and I will be your storyteller. Lean back and relax as I read to you today's story, titled But Bruh, You're Not a Fighter, by the author, Jack the Horror. Well, this story is about 10 years ago, but still comes to mind when I'm reading the stories here. So I'll welcome you to the world of stats are stats, but only when I want them to be stats, as meant by GM. It was one of my first tabletop experiences. We played the system The Dark Eye, a rather rule-heavy system, but that was fine for me. The group was the Viking Fighter, absolute newbie to tabletops, but a totally nice guy and a former classmate. The Rogue, or maybe Priest of God of Thieves, I don't know, did not get that far. A friend of my girlfriend I befriended too, and longtime GM before he started playing again with us. Hunter/Trapper, my humble person. Played about 2 sessions of tabletop before in groups, also including the Rogue as GM and the GM as player. The GM, former classmate, had mostly an okayish personality. As players, always played an arrogant sword fighter, arrogant enough that the other PCs often were not much fun of him, but still reliable and helpful enough to not totally despise him, so for me it was fine. GM'd in other groups before, and we played his self-written adventure. The following story took 3 to 4 sessions, a 6 to 8 hour playtime, and can be divided in 3 chapters. Chapter 1. The Capture. We started our first session mid-fight. Totally fine stylistic device, the Viking loved it. The Rogue and my Trapper, not so much. We were both not fans of open fighting. Who would have guessed? And it started with an angry, and apparently high-skilled, orc running at each one of us. The Rogue was down in a few hits. I defended myself a bit with my spear, mostly used to finish off animals that were trapped in one of my bear traps, and after getting disarmed with my hatchet, went down a few rounds after the Rogue. The fighter had a few good dice rolls and was kind of on par with his orc, but was then overwhelmed by the 3 of them after we other 2 went down. So we were captured, and I guessed to myself, oh, probably that was his plan all along. Kind of irritating at first, but hey, at least it was an action-packed start. We were held in a wooden cage in their camp, guarded by 3 orcs at all times. I think I remember GM saying something about the orcs being cautious about the Vikings' strength. Somehow, Rogue and me freed our hands without the guards noticing. But even when we could get an unnoticed moment to look at the cage door, the Rogue could not open it because there was no lock on it, but some kind of primitive-looking mechanism. Don't ask me why he was not allowed to lockpick this. So we were caged there for several days, with minimum food and water, getting beaten to a pulp when we were complaining about not getting enough. But we already were working on a plan. Chapter 2. The rescue? After said days, there was suddenly movement in the orc camp. Right in the moment, we tried to break out. But to our joy, we saw that the orcs were attacked by knights of the war goddess Rondra. Remember for later, these knights have a very strong oath to protect the weak, to always fight fair, even to the point that they only fight with fists against armed attackers if they think their skills are much above the attackers, and so on. One knight freed us, gave the Viking the weapon of a slayed orc, and turned to us, the heavily beaten Rogue and the Trapper, more crawling out of the cage and supporting each other shoulder on shoulder. "Grab a weapon and fight," he said. We looked at each other. "Neither of us are in the condition to fight or are fighters," I replied. The knight just repeated his text. I looked around and only saw a crude and giant 2-handed orc axe on the ground. I shook my head. "Sorry, I'm not able to, and even if I were, I could not even lift that thing. Maybe you have found our luggage? I'm decent with my spare, or with any spare you have. The knight picked up the axe, threw it on the ground before me, pointed his Zweihänder at me and said, "Fight or die!" Without many other options, I grabbed the axe and somehow the rogue and I got to the hut we were expecting our luggage to be in without getting killed. Though we weren't able to kill or even harm anyone either. We needed several very lucky rolls to achieve that. The rogue was allowed to pick the lock of the hut, and even after some rolls for the bear trap in the hut and taunting an orc in there, well, a second orc noticed this, and so the strangest understanding of fighting I've ever heard of a GM started. We had to fight this orc in an open fight. All of our attempts to trick him, or getting him to run away from our trail, were annihilated by the sheer physical superiority of the orc. We couldn't run away from him, he noticed all the traps or tricks we tried to pull, and so on. So in the end, I fought with him. Orc sword against my trusted hatchet. Me. Okay, I hit him. I rolled even 4 points over my modifier needed for that. GM. No, you do not hit him. Me. Oh, did he parry? Sorry, I didn't see you rolling for that. Well, I was sad putting down my damage and dices. GM. No, you just did not hit him. Me. There was a negative modifier because we were so beaten up. Okay, please tell me so next time, but I think over 4 points negative modifier is kinda harsh, ain't it? GM. No, you don't hit because you are not a fighter. Me. What? But I have these stats in fighting with my hatchet. And when I roll over this stat, I hit, no? Yeah, in the Dark Eye, it's the other way around as in D&D. You have to roll over your stat with your d20, just for clarification. GM. Yeah, but you are no fighter. A sword skill of 12 on a fighter is not the same as a sword skill of 12 on a trapper. That's only logical. I shorten this here and just say, we were beaten to a pulp. Again. The Viking did Viking things in the meantime. The knight did the same, but without the jeering. Chapter 3. I don't know what the fuck this was. My trapper woke up later in a tent. The others explained to me that we are in the camp of the knights. My trapper was furious. Yeah, they were rescued, but only to be sent into a death trap by the knights afterwards. Rogue and trapper just survived by pure luck. Suddenly, a woman enters the tent, seemingly some kind of maid. She asked what the matter is and that she brought us food and medicine. My trapper told her the story and why he is so upset about the situation. The maid reprimanded him. He had to be thankful and owes his life to the Knights of Rondra now, and as such it does not befit to talk that bad about our saviors. Please, dear reader, remind me who spoke oaths to protect the weak and so on. There is no fine print saying, "And thou you should rescue the one in need," to make them your vassal against their will. My trapper got even more upset by this and tried to leave. He was back on his feet and would survive in the woods with his survival skills. He was in no more need of help. Remark, my trappers folk is known for their love of freedom and independence, as they had to live a long time under orc hierarchy. The maid forcefully pushed him back into the tent. He got up again, tried it again, and she pushed him again. So he pushed her as well. No fistfight, no. I'd tackle her down like I would try to throw her out of a wrestling arena or such. She's pushed out of the tent, hitting her head so hard that it's bleeding, and screaming that she's been attacked. Suddenly, he had about 6 or 7 Zweihänder on my throat, demanding satisfaction. Still angry, but as calm as possible, he explained that he did not want to hurt her, but that he is no prisoner either, and won't be treated as one. When he wants to leave, he leaves. This answer did not spark joy in the hearts of these honorable, oathed knights. So some of them strike my unarmed trapper down, with the Zweihander, in his back. And the funny thing is, when he woke up again in their tent, the mates told him that he now owes the knights double because they healed him again and did not let him bleed out. This all took place in about 3 to 4 sessions at a 6 to 8 hour playtime. And later, the GM tried to lure us back with retconning that these knights in particular were no knights of Rondra, but mercenaries that were hired by the knights of Rondra. Thus, they were wearing Rondra armor and such. Plot twist, in the eyes of Rondra, mercenaries are mostly filth, as they do not fight for honor or some other higher good, but only for the ones paying enough. Thankfully, I did not give up on this hobby, and while having a few more horror stories up my sleeve, I would not like to miss the years of fun I had with TTRPG, as player as much as GM. A TLDR. Numbers are relative, you need to be a carpenter to pick a wooden log, and you also owe me your life because I rescued you from being slain by my own sword. Edit. A little mistake on my side. I mixed up the rolling system of the Dark Eye in D&D. It's still right that it's the opposite and the 4 hit points I rolled is better, but in this case I rolled 4 below the needed number, not above, which is better in the Dark Eye. And that was today's story. I hope you enjoyed your stay and that I will see you again soon, for there are always more stories to be shared.